Pop.
Son, back at it.
Feels like it was just yesterday. We are recording our second pod for the week here, guys. As you know, second podcast, we usually go around the NFL news. I got some news that I'm breaking that I don't even know if Pop knows here. So this is some exciting stuff. But let's get right into it. How you feeling, Pop? Give the people a quick vibe check. Where are the vibes at?
Vibe checks are good,
How can they not be?
Full disclosure, we do record this early in the week, so if there's any really breaking news, you'll know why we're not talking about it. But we'll get caught up, every Monday, Thursday. So our Monday pods are a little more fresh, but I feel good. It's Adam Peters season. It's time to let AP cook. So We've already had the huge news with Deebo Samuel. Who knows what else is broke this week? Like I said, that we're not even talking about at this point. But where things are really gonna get exciting and really start to pick up is with the free agency that starts on the 10th.
If you're watching this podcast, nothing has broken big enough this week for us to post this podcast. So if it's something, if Myles Garrett comes to the Commanders, this podcast will never be heard.
It'll be
so if you're hearing this podcast, it's because things went according to plan this week. It's been a relatively low-key week. So let's get into it. Free agency still doesn't officially start until March 10th. And then the negotiation or legal tampering window, I think they call it, opens March 10th, and then it will officially open on the 12th. But going around just updating you guys on the NFL news that we've got going this week. So first things first, tough news for the Washington Commanders here as they try to shore up the quarterback position. Matt Stafford once again slips through our fingers. Just kidding. If you guys remember the last time there was Matt Stafford news, it was that we offered more than the Rams offered, but he just didn't want to come play here. Oh my, how times have changed. But he is officially back in LA, restructured the contract. Could have told you that was going to happen. I think we all thought that was coming. There's no way he wanted to go play for the Giants. Come on.
It did make a lot of sense. You heard a little bit of fracture happening between LA and Matt and, a little friction happening. But if you get rid of him, you're in the quarterback business again. And what better options are out there than Matt Stafford? I don't think there are any.
Well, the options out there right now are Kirk Cousins via trade. Aaron Rodgers, how you like that one, Pop? Aaron Rodgers will be a free agent. No confirmation on his whereabouts now at the moment. He could be anywhere. Russell Wilson will be a free agent. Justin Fields is a free agent, and Sam Darnold is a free agent. So starts to make a lot more sense why the Rams said, "Hey, we're cool with Jimmy Garoppolo if Matt
Stafford's clearly ahead of that scheme. He's a heck of a player when everything's right. And Rams seemed like they were starting to find themselves through the course of the year. I think they've done a bit of a reset, and they're starting to become the Rams again. So
no offense to our boys, but they gave the Super Bowl champs the best scare that they got, and I believe if that game was pouring down snow, I think the Rams were going to give them the business. So Eagles fans won't be too happy about that take, but they were right there. They were right there until the end of it, and obviously the weather, I think, while both teams played in it, I think the weather much more benefited Philly's style of play. But neither here nor there.
Son, heck of a transition, as the Italians would say, just like a professional.
Yes, sir.
Professional.
Yes, sir, man. I got places to be. We getting through this outline. But so basically, if you look at the guys that are available and you look at the need for quarterback across the NFL, and this is basically this whole first segment, we're just talking quarterback. Steelers, Raiders, Giants, Jets, Browns, Titans, and the Colts want to bring in a veteran to compete.
Which makes sense.
Makes sense given what you've seen out of Richardson so far.
Yeah.
So, wow, what a swing and a miss from the boy on that one last offseason. Got a little too excited on Anthony Richardson. I'll take that one on the chin. Thank God everybody drafted him before I could get him in fantasy football. They saved my season. But so Steelers, Raiders, Giants, Jets, Browns, Titans all need quarterbacks. Let's leave the Colts out of it for now. How do you think this falls into place, Pop? I mean, what do you think happens across the league? Are there, Daniel Jones is a name that's out there.
That's
Obviously, we
true.
talked about Rodgers. Right now, the most smoke is around Rodgers to the Giants. What do we think?
We're going to touch on that one in a little more detail here in our next segment. So
All
I'll
right,
say we,
cool.
we pause on that
Skip it.
for that. But, in terms of who's going to land where, I know there are definitely lists starting to formulate out there. It's pretty interesting. I mean, where does Aaron Rodgers go at this point? Raiders are always, he just seems like the perfect fit for something like the Raiders. But then again, you've heard Russell Wilson's name thrown out there too.
I don't think either of those are happening. I think Pete Carroll ran Russell Wilson out of Seattle, and then he's now coaching the Raiders. He's not bringing Russ there. I just don't see. I don't see that. I don't see this hunky dory Russell Wilson reunion in Vegas. I could be wrong, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. It's going to really be interesting to see where these pieces flow.
Yeah,
We're going to get into what the Giants do in our next segment. They've got choices they've got to make. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just going across town from the Jets to the Giants. That's pretty wild. But let's
yeah.
tease that one and get into that one in a little bit.
Must have signed a multi-year lease on his apartment.
We'll see. I mean, it's you've got some decent players here. I mean, what happens with Kirk? I mean, obviously it seems like he's going to be traded or get cut and maybe become a free agent. He might be the best of the bunch if he can get healthy.
Sure, yeah.
The rest, if he can get healthy. Sam Darnold, can he repeat? What do the Vikings do? We haven't really added the Vikings to this list, right? I mean, they got JJ McCarthy, who they drafted really high, but got injured, pretty significant knee injury.
Yeah, but I think that's your clear and obvious answer.
You've got to have another vet in Minnesota, right?
Maybe they bring Daniel Jones back as a backup. I think that's probably where that goes. I think you bring Daniel Jones back as a backup, and you've got JJ McCarthy there. At this point, I'm convinced you could put Rudy Giuliani in at quarterback in Kevin O'Connell's system, and they probably
Where'd
win
that
12
name come
games.
from?
I mean, the guy is just, he knows how to make quarterbacks. He makes the game easy for quarterbacks, and he makes really mediocre quarterbacks otherwise look elite regularly. I mean, Darnold stinks. I'm firmly on that take. I don't think Darnold goes to any of these teams. I think he will land on one of these teams, but I don't think Darnold goes to the Raiders, the Giants, the Jets, the Browns, or the Titans and has success. I think he could have success in Pittsburgh because that defense is so good. But I don't see Darnold lighting it up anywhere in any of those destinations. Especially not. I think the Titans probably end up taking Cam Ward, and I think either the Browns or the Giants end up taking Shedeur. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
I can give you a quick rundown from CBS Sports. So CBS Sports has they talk about 5 guys. So they got Captain Kirk either going to the Browns, Colts, or Jets.
Yeah.
They got Russell Wilson either going to the Giants, Raiders, or Steelers. They got Aaron Rodgers, Raiders, Steelers, Titans, or Vikings. Vikings is an interesting one there. They got Justin Fields going to the Browns, Jets, Raiders, or Steelers. So they're covering all the bases there. And Sam Darnold, who they've got number 1 here, Giants, Jets, Raiders, Vikings. Sam Darnold in New York again with the Giants. That makes some sense. That could be a good move for them.
I don't know.
I mean,
I think,
you're patching a hole at this point, right?
yeah. I think when you look at the Giants, you look at Joe Shane and Brian Dable are so desperate. I mean, I know we don't want to talk about the Giants yet in this segment, but I don't have read on any of these other guys. So it's kind of tricky. What do you think the Titans do? Do you think the Titans take Cam Ward number 1 overall?
I don't. I mean, I think they go quarterback, and Ward seems to be the lean. We'll definitely get into that when we talk draft, but it seems like these top two guys are going to come off the board somewhere in the top 3 picks. I mean, why don't we do this? If we're done on this topic, let's roll into our next segment because it'll lead into where we want to talk. We're going to talk about what the Giants are going to do. That's part of the next segment. Let's roll into it.
Can I be 100% honest?
Yeah.
I don't care who the Raiders start a quarterback next year. I don't.
That's
We're
right.
going to blow them by 40 points. I really don't care who the Raiders start a quarterback. And especially with these names. If you had juicier names out there, but this is just one of the most disastrous quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's talk about what's going to happen at the top of the draft, how that's going to impact the Giants. You set up this next segment, and the folks will know what the hell we're talking about here.
Yeah, so you're expecting at the top of the draft, you're expecting Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders to go within the top 3 picks at this point. And obviously, your top 3 picks are the Titans, the Browns, and the Giants. Browns have Deshaun Watson. That's kind of a mess. Obviously, coming off of injuries and all that. Titans, you just don't know what they're going to do there. That's just a team in complete disarray. Giants, we play them twice a year. It's much more interesting. And that's a situation that I think we're going to get into here because this is our NFC East news top stories segment for the week. So
yeah, we figure we zoom in on the NFC East. What are like the top 1 or 2 stories for each team? And we're going to start with the Giants because Dominic's just chopping at the bit. Plus, they're first on the outline. So
it's the most exciting thing to talk about on this list.
Yes, 100%.
So what do they do at quarterback, right? Daniel Jones obviously didn't work out. You've got this disaster of a situation, which I just don't know why owners across the NFL. You cannot have new quarterback situations with head coaches and GMs in prove-it situations. You cannot. It's a recipe for failure.
Yeah,
I don't know why they do it. Because now, if you get a guy like Cam Ward, you're going to ruin him. If you get a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who I don't think is going to be a starting NFL quarterback in a few years anyways, but you're going to ruin him. I just don't. I think it's so stupid. They should have fired Dable and Shane and just cleaned house. You got a top 3 pick. Why waste that top 3 pick with 2 guys that have proven to be completely incompetent? But hey, as a Commanders fan, we're doing great. I love it, Giants. Keep it up. Keep it up. And you know who I think, as a Commanders fan, would be the perfect fit for the New York Giants is Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a star in New York City, baby. I think he's going to be a star. I don't think Aaron Rodgers can still play quarterback. I will be completely honest. I didn't think he could play quarterback 2 years ago, and he did nothing but prove me right for the last couple of years. I think Aaron Rodgers is a joke at this point in his career for a multitude of reasons on and off the field, but I particularly am not a fan of Aaron Rodgers, the player, right now. That's what we're talking about, and I think him going to New York would just be awesome. And it screams Joe Shane and Brian Dable.
Aaron Rodgers going anything, anywhere right now and working out is an upset.
Yeah.
Now, would I take a flyer on him if I was one of those teams and I was kind of left with no other options, one of those teams we just mentioned? If I was the Raiders and there was really no one intriguing left on the board and he was all that was left, sure, you take a shot. Take a shot to see if he can rekindle, maybe he's got a piece of humble pie, maybe one more year of rehab, but you're talking about a 4-year-old player. So him working out anywhere would be an upset. And
you don't got to rehab the Achilles. He's got to rehab this, and he ain't rehabbing that.
Well, but you're bottom line. Regardless of rehabbing this or not, you're a 40-year-old player who's just come off a major injury, who's got probably some confidence issues at this point, quite frankly, because if you're Aaron Rodgers, what have you based your game on? You've based it on that brash, that confidence, that leadership. You're not really that guy anymore. So, but I think for the Giants, you're sitting at number 3. You kind of blew it by winning a game down the stretch. You're sitting at number 3. The other piece of it is it's kind of interesting. Like if you look at Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, if you put them in the 2024 quarterback draft class, where would they be?
Not in the first round. Not in the first.
Maybe they're after Bo Nix or like in that range, right? And Bo Nix worked out really well for the Broncos. So you're also talking about a couple of guys there that don't seem to be like these can't miss prospects that we've seen in other drafts at the top of the drafts. It's just teams taking swings at quarterbacks, obviously very talented players, because you got to at that stage, especially if you need a quarterback. So all top 3 teams need quarterbacks. You got 2 guys there that we expect to see go off the board early. There's buzz about Aaron Rodgers in the Giants. We talked about they were named for just about every free agent that's out there, quarterback.
Yeah.
Do they go free agent and do they just go ahead and pick a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter at edge? Maybe that's a smart move. There's talk of them possibly trading up and, making sure they get one of these quarterbacks if Cam Ward is the apple of their eye. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't really know what to predict for the Giants, but they've really put themselves in a tough spot here.
Yeah,
of course, we love it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, if I'm the Giants, I'm trading back. If I'm the Giants and one of those quarterbacks is on the board and somebody wants to pay me for them, but they won't do that because of the idiotic structure that they have there with Shane and Daboll in prove-it situations. There are 2 things that can extend your life in the NFL. Winning, which if they think they can bring in Aaron Rodgers and win 9 games and show, hey, all we needed was a quarterback, now let's build this thing, that'll save them. Or a young quarterback that shows promise. So that's the next side of it, is does Cam Ward fall to number 3? Does Shedeur Sanders fall to number 3? If that's the case, and it's terrible for these young men, because I think they've got no chance to succeed up there. But if that's the case, you draft one of them and you pray that over the course of 17 games, they show enough for you to plead your case to ownership and say, hey, look at these guys. It's the Sam Howell experiment all over.
The problem is a 9-win team with a veteran quarterback that's at the end of their career is the worst position possible to be in, because you don't have your franchise quarterback. Yep. So that's, we know we can relate, Giants fan, because we've been there. We've been there. We've been in the cave, baby, as Chris Rock once said.
Yeah.
We understand it. So, they're in a tough spot. They can work their way out of it. You were a big Daboll fan as a coach at one point, so I do think the guy can coach. I do think they have some talent, but it's really one of those shot in the dark situations, right? I mean, where you just hope somebody like a Justin Fields or a Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson, who showed sparks at times, or an Aaron Rodgers or a Kirk Cousins, whoever you end up picking up can do some stuff. But then again, they're probably, they're not your franchise guy. They're a temporary fix. And where do you go from there? So tough times for the Giants.
Where I go from here, if I'm the Giants, I either draft Abdul Carter or I trade out and I fire everybody at the end of this season and I tank again. I think that's what they should do. But hey, those
an argument to be made for that.
Top 3, top 5 picks for the Giants are not hard to come by. So go ahead, draft Cam Ward. You'll be in the top 5 again next year.
I tend to agree with you, though. That makes a lot of sense. And not that I want to give the Giants advice of what to do right.
Well, they're not listening to us, so
I think I would go with kind of that best player available. And if they think of Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter or like a generational talent at their positions, might be the smarter move.
Yeah. So that's
that roster.
And to your point earlier, Pop, 9 wins with a veteran quarterback, that doesn't make the playoffs the way the NFC is right now, and that certainly doesn't even make you relevant in this division. You've got the Super Bowl champions and the best team in the NFL in this division, and you've got the other team that was in the NFC Championship that just added Deebo Samuel and is building towards being a legit contender next year in this division. 9 wins ain't going to cut it, and you're not getting the 9 wins playing us in Philly twice. It's just the reality. But good luck to our Giants fans.
Welcome to the New York Giants podcast, people.
Brutal situation there. But speaking of brutal situations, the Cowboys got no chance with that ownership, and certainly no chance with that owner playing GM. I got some news for you, Pop. Trayvon Diggs expected to be traded or cut by March 12th. So by the start of the league year, Trayvon Diggs will be traded or he will be gone.
Wow, that's a pretty precipitous fall there.
Come on home, my brother. Come
That's
on
it.
home.
Hometown kid. Maybe we sign him and his brother.
Hometown kid, looked like a stud with Dan Quinn. Fell off without Dan Quinn. Got injured. Needs to come somewhere to prove it. I mean, there is literally no better place. I've been waiting all pod to say that. So that is so exciting to me, especially if you get him as a free agent. You're not going to trade for him at this point, but if you can get him as a free agent, I mean, amazing. But the heat is on. They're running the Fire Jerry the GM campaign. I got bad news for you, friends. Ain't happening. Ain't happening. Jerry's going to have to, move on from everything related to the Cowboys entirely before he fires himself as a GM. It just ain't happening. Pop asked, will they be big players in FA after a quiet 2024 in free agency? Not with $2 million in cap space, they won't. So they ain't doing squat. They're linked to maybe Cooper Kupp. Have a blast. I think Dallas, best case scenario, wins 9 games next year. I don't believe in that coach. That roster was talented at one point. I don't know how much talent they still have. Micah Parsons is obviously an animal, but they're just in a disaster of a situation.
Well, it's kind of funny. I mean, social media is social media, right? But with the Deebo Samuel news going to the Commanders, you got 2 very polar opposite reactions. Yeah. Eagles fan and I'm going to generalize, are like, he's washed. Good luck with that. We're going to smoke him. Cowboys fans are like, damn it, Jerry, you missed on another opportunity here. Why isn't he a Cowboy? They're upset. So it's kind of interesting, the 2 ends of the spectrum there from different fan bases. But there's pressure on Jerry Jones. I think I'll answer this question about will they be big players in a free agency. I think they're going to try to be, because I think that there is so much pressure and there is so much heat, and it's never a good situation to be in. We've been there, where you start to make moves because of the noise you're hearing from the fan base and the noise you're hearing from the press. And I think that they're going to attempt some things. How successful they will be, but I think they're going to attempt to make some splashes. You're right. Maybe that's why they got to cut some guys in order to free up cap space to be able to make those splashes. But I think you're going to see a little bit more activity out of Big D than we've seen in years past, because they've got to do something. They can't just run it back.
Well, I mean, let's not forget the splash they made for Jonathan Mingo last trade deadline. Let's not forget that. They did pay a 4th rounder for Mingo, where we paid a 5th rounder for Debo. And while we're talking about that, Philly paid a 3rd rounder for Jahan Dotson. And it is amazing the delusion of the Philly fans on Twitter trying to say that them getting Dotson for a 3rd rounder was better than us getting Debo for a 5th rounder. You're delusional. You're just completely discrediting and proving your lack of ability to see past your team's bias. Anybody who's saying that. So Eagles are shaking in their boots per every report that's been made and the way their fans behave. They're looking to make a big swing for Myles Garrett, and which would mean they probably have to move on. It's almost a guarantee they're moving on from Josh Sweat at this point. They would likely have to move on from Zach Bond as well, and I think Milton Williams is looking like he's going to move on as well. So a lot of the strength of that Philadelphia Eagles team looking like not going to be returning.
Speaking of,
any of those 3 guys that are leaving, I'm not the highest in the world on Zach Bond myself. I think he played really well in a really great system. I think he way overperformed his skis, and I think that's a guy that might make a GM look kind of silly, whoever goes and signs him. That being said, he had a phenomenal year last year, so it'd be hard to be upset if we did sign him, but I don't think we will. I don't think we're looking at linebacker this year. But Josh Sweat and Milton Williams.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to tee up the Eagles fans to kind of get active in our comments. I mean, saying the Eagles are shaking in their boots about the Commanders, I think, is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I feel like they do feel us breathing down their neck. I would say this. If they got Myles Garrett, I would really hate that.
Oh, who wouldn't?
That would really suck, because, they're already probably, favorites to win it again next year after what they were able to put together. And, generally, even after losing a couple of these key guys, they still got a heck of a roster. They add Myles Garrett to that. That is big, and they seem like, they're going to do everything they can to be super aggressive to do that. And at some point, we're going to run out of draft picks, the Commanders are. So
sure.
I don't know. You wonder who's in better position from an asset perspective. I'm not sure. But, I don't know that I necessarily like our chances going head-to-head against Eagles to get Myles Garrett if they just decide we're gonna sign him. We're not going to let him go anywhere.
Frankly,
right?
I think why do you feel that way, Pop?
Maybe it's been a track record.
Okay, because Howie Roseman has a track record for landing these types of guys.
Yeah, he's got a track record for doing it. I mean, they said they're calling him this year's Saquon Barkley. If you're Myles Garrett and your number one goal is to win a Super Bowl,
okay,
it's got to be pretty attractive to you.
Logically speaking, we can pay him more money. If he comes here, he still has a pretty decent shot at winning a Super Bowl. And we have more draft picks. We have better draft capital than Philly. So if we have better draft capital, we can pay him more money because we have way more cap space. Philly does not have the cap space right now to make that work. And again, we're still the odds-on betting favorites to land Garrett by a lot. So, the Eagles are like plus 550. I think we're plus 275. So that's a significant favorite. And there's 2 or 3 teams in between us. If you look at like what the 33rd team posted a few days ago. I still
the Eagles, just to fact check you a little bit, the Eagles have 9 picks. They've got a pick in every round plus 3 in the 5th. So they're in a little bit stronger position, I think.
Their overall draft capital based on where those picks are ranked, at least prior to the Debo trade, ranked below us, and you figure you're going to get that 5th round pick.
Well, back. Yeah, I mean we've still got our top 3, but yeah,
and you're going to get that 5th round pick.
I don't think it's a big advantage if you're going to call that out as an advantage.
Fine, but if you're Cleveland, you're probably banking on Washington picking ahead of Philly these next couple of years, anyways. Also, I don't think Myles Garrett's getting traded this offseason. Like, it is really heading towards Cleveland does not do things the right way. They're a stupid organization. They're bad at what they do. They've been consistently bad at what they do. Things are not trending towards Cleveland wanting to move off this block. I think Cleveland's going to put their foot down. I think Garrett's going to hold out, and I think you're looking at either a trade deadline thing this year or a trade thing next season. And who knows what things look like at that point. That being said, I also want to entertain the question. Myles Garrett is a generational talent, absolute stud. I've been on here saying blank check, give him whatever you want for Myles Garrett. What is the delta of Philly losing Zach Bond, Josh Sweat, and Milton Williams, but then adding Myles Garrett? Who do they add in those other positions to make that advantageous to them? I think Howie Roseman has shown nothing but a track record of he's going to find some guy that you've never heard of that's going to play like a stud next to Garrett, and he's going to make it great, which is why I'm very against this happening. But you do have to ask that question. It does open up a little more volatility when they make that move. If you're going to move on from a bunch of your guys who got you there in order to bring in Garrett and now cost yourself a lot of assets moving forward, I don't know. I think they're terrifying with Myles Garrett. I don't want to see Myles Garrett, but it gets interesting. And if they move, like, if we don't have to give up the assets, like the first round picks, which I think it will take multiple of them at this point, we don't have to give that up, and we're able to get Josh Sweat and or Milton Williams. It's interesting. Things play out how they will. I still think we're more likely to land Myles Garrett than the Eagles. I don't think either team will have Myles Garrett on them by the end of next year based on the way things are trending, but we'll see. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, and that's why I said what I said, I mean, Howie Roseman's got a multi-year track record for being a great roster builder. And he takes big swings. He's pretty successful taking those big swings. I'm sure he's going to have another really good offseason. And that's the thing that's distressing, about being in a situation. The Eagles aren't a team that won that championship, and you can kind of look and see a precipitous downfall It's really going to be a battle to catch up to them. And that's why I think you'll see the Commanders stay aggressive.
Yep.
Because they have to.
And that's why I think if it comes down to it, I don't think Adam Peters is going to let Howie Roseman outbid him. And that could hurt. That could be unwise. But I just don't think he's going to let
It's going to be a standoff because Howie seems – I mean, if you believe the reporting that's out there, that's exactly Howie Roseman's attitude. He's not going to let AP outbid him. So we'll see.
Somebody's got to win.
I think that I'm with you, and I'm providing the counterpoint to you because you tend to be very optimistic in these situations when it comes to our boys. But I think that if you're the advantage Eagles have in this situation is they're not looking for their championship window to open. They're already there. So they could get a little crazy with next year's first rounder and the year after and go a little nuts because they want to go back to back. They want to add a generational talent to go back to back. Does AP, if this gets kind of crazy and he gets the 2 or 3 high picks, does he start to go, whoa, we got a lot of holes to fill on this team. We got a young player in Jane Dance. We can't mortgage our future away for one, great player. But maybe we're in a situation where 2-3 years down the line, we're competing and the Eagles are starting to slide back. That I could see a situation where he gets his bluff called first. But we'll see.
Again,
don't even know if Cleveland's willing to entertain it, but it's a fun conversation to have. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that brings us to the Commanders, who we've talked extensively about at this point. Myles Garrett is the biggest splash. I brought up Hollywood Brown as an option on the last pod. I think Ronnie Staley's still in play. I think
Staley would be my number one.
Yeah, if you have an opportunity to get an elite tackle, you go do that. I'm not sure he's necessarily elite, but he's on that very good to elite line. He played really well last year. He's really good when he's healthy. I think that's where you got to look next for the Commanders is to continue to improve in the trenches. I think in terms of splashes at skill positions, I think we're done. I do think next up is going to be a star running back in the draft, and I think you've got a lot to choose from there. I think between Henderson, Hampton, and Judkins, I think any one of those 3 would really hit here. So
that's why, I know I'm counter a lot of people, and I know everybody who's probably a lot smarter than me, including you, son, is go get Myles Garrett at all costs. I'm just not sure I'm there. I'm not sure I'm there because I think if you can add a Staley or, some other really great pieces in free agency and then keep your draft pick and go edge with that first pick. It's a deep draft at edge. I think we've got a lot of things to address and mortgaging away the future. We've already traded a lot of picks. We've already made 2 big splash trades, one on defense with Lattimore, one on offense with Deebo Samuel. We've traded a lot of draft capital away already. I'd almost prefer the strategy of let's get aggressive at free agency. This is a destination place now. Let's work that. Let's get a bunch of guys that are really, really excellent players. Keep those picks for this year, next year, and keep adding youth to the roster because we need people in and around Jaden's age to grow and to play with him. Not a bunch of 29, 30, 32-year-olds on this roster, right?
Yeah. There's a different it's going to be interesting to see how we approach it. But I agree. Yeah, you've got to – bottom line is you got to add talent. You got to add talent now. And so I think the Deebo Samuel trade is an indicator of how aggressive they plan on being moving forward. And I think we see where it goes from there.
We'll check in on the NFC East. We'll probably do another one in a couple of weeks once we know who's signing and obviously put a little more focus. But free agency is going to be a blast, and we'll be covering all the latest news with regards to that.
Yep. But I think that's it for us today, guys. It's been a lot of fun. What do you say we wrap this thing up?
Let's do it.
All right. I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
And thank you for another great week, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.